consultant area. So I'm going to start with the very first question. Can I be a consultant if I'm pretty early in my career? Do I need 20 years experience? Do I need 5 years experience? How much experience do I need?
We need Clif here. I'm not sure where he is. So Clif did not move over. Clif and I are doing this. So Katie, can you
let's see.
Text?
Oh, hold on. I feel like it's one more person within a black box there.
You may have moved to the wrong room.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to take the question in the meantime, Bob?
Sure. I'm sorry. I wasn't as paying attention to the question as I should have been.
You're our other expert. We'll let you, we know you can handle it.
I'm still early on in my career. Yeah. So, you know, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
There he is. Okay. So the Clif.
I could repeat the question, Clif.
That'd be great.
So can I be a consultant if I'm still pretty early in my career? Does it take 5 years? Does it take 20 years experience? How much experience do I need? And Bob was going to start. Go ahead, Bob.
So, you know, I started my career, you know, getting some experience working in the financial area and in hospitals, and then went on to consulting once I had built up some level of knowledge and experience, as well as in the IT space. And my personal experience is that why would somebody want to hire you? Now, I know Clif is probably going to give you a slightly different answer, but why would somebody want to hire you as a consultant if you're selling expertise? Now, there's an alternative approach, which is if you go to work for a consulting organization, which is what Clif's company does, so I'm sure he's going to give a slightly different opinion, but I do a lot of independent consulting, and I sell myself as an expert. Can't be an expert if you don't have the experience.
Clif, would you like to take the question?
No, I agree with what Bob is saying, that if you are the, if you will, the lead and principal consultant on any project, you need to have enough years of experience. But all the consulting firms, including ours, we hire people that range from, I mean, we've hired people right out of college to senior level people. So all consulting firms have oftentimes do things by consulting teams, or in some cases, let's say somebody had 3 years of experience and they know how to do a particular thing, like implementing lab systems or something. Those people get hired on consulting teams all the time.
Well, thank you, Clif. I'd love to throw it out to our other president we have here, Steve Earle. Do you have any comments as well? You've seen some.
Well, I think both Bob and Clif gave some great answers. In terms of, you know, wondering how many years of experience, I think that's much less of an issue today than it might have been a generation ago. A generation ago, people often wanted someone who they thought had a long track record because they thought that equated to good qualified experience. I think anyone who's been in the industry for a while has learned that's not necessarily true. There are people who have many years of experience but don't have great breadth or depth of experience. Some people who've only been in the industry a handful of years but have valuable experience. And I think if they have expertise in certain areas that is in demand, and if people are getting back to the good listeners, if they're good listeners, if they're adaptable, if they're able to adapt to the culture of the client, understand the client's needs, and understand how they can either use the experience, the knowledge they have, or go find it. Many times, even experienced consultants are going to be placed in a situation where they're dealing with something that's brand new to them. They've got to become an expert overnight. I think all of us who've been in the field for a while have been in that position at least once. So I really don't think it's as critical to have a lengthy period of experience as it is having experience and the ability to gain experience quickly that will provide value to your clients.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to have another past president here helping us out, so thank you for that. Would you recommend that new graduates get their first experience in healthcare from a provider or a payer before getting, you know, what do you think before getting into consulting, for instance? What would you suggest?
So Cliff, why don't you take that and I'll do a follow-up.
Sure. I think that's, Melissa, I think that's a no-brainer. I think the provider space, if wanting to move into consulting is a very valuable, if nothing else, a first step, because one, people will, it's a street credibility with the people who you're trying to consult to, which is you've been there before, you know what it's like to work inside the house.
Great, thank you very much, Cliff. Bob?
So I'll give a slightly different answer, although I totally agree with Cliff on that as well. But I'll give a slightly different answer in terms of career opportunities. First of all, you may decide that you really like the payer world. And Mary, who is in the other group right now, Mary Maloney, has been a CIO in the payer world for a very extensive period of time. My wife has been in the payer world for a very extensive period of time. If that's the area you want to stay in and you want to continue in that space, then clearly, just like the provider world, if you want to consult to them because you want to be doing database work or you want to be doing revenue cycle work that's payer specific, clearly get some experience in that space. The alternative is a lot of people have actually gone into the vendor world and been trained in that world. And I have a ton of friends of mine, and I know, Cliff, you know a ton of people as well that went to work at Meditech, and they cut their teeth at Meditech, and they did that for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Sure.
Got a ton of experience in that world, and then they went on to other jobs because they had that preliminary basic grounding. So I think the idea is if you want to be a consultant, you got to get some grounding somewhere. You can get it in all 3 areas. It's harder to get it in the consulting space directly because you don't have as much credibility as having done it.
Yeah, but you bring up a good point in terms of, it kind of broadens the question, Melissa. Sorry, I'm going to wander outside the question again. But it does raise the notion when we look and assess people, whether it be for our clients who are typically health systems or ourselves as a consulting firm, we literally look for people who had experience in multiple venues, whether it be the provider sector, the vendor sector, as Bob was mentioning with his Meditech example, or Epic, it doesn't matter who it is, as well as consulting venues. And then you would add in, now that I think the business of healthcare has changed because we're talking about the fusion of providers and payers. Where's the line anymore? It's not like black and white anymore. So I think there's a blur, but in the long haul, if people are looking at career credibility, having worked in the different venues is important.
Thank you so much. We actually have a question from the chat too. I'm working in HIT for 16 years now, same company all along. I'm an individual contributor now on the technical solution architecture side. Recently, I got my MBA part-time and I'm aspiring to switch with a business plus IT interfacing team leading role. Been applying through LinkedIn and other channels, but hardly ever get a reply. What might I be missing in my job search? Great question. Thank you.
So I'll take that first, and then I'll turn it to my friend. So I think one of the biggest challenges people have when they're looking for a job is they're not proactive. They think applying for a ton of jobs on LinkedIn or through Indeed or any other approach is, I'm scattering my resume to everybody in the world and somebody's going to get back to me. And that puts the onus on other people, doesn't put the onus on you. My approach is very different when I advise people, and I do a lot of career mentoring, and that is networking is the absolute most key to getting a job. 75 to 80% of people get jobs through mentoring, through networking. They do not get jobs that are advertised. 9 times out of 10, when jobs are advertised, they've already identified the person. Katie is a slightly different example because, she works for an organization that helps people find jobs as a headhunter. Excuse the expression, Katie, but that's the easiest one to use. So that's a different example. That's an organization that's had a hard time placing somebody, finding somebody, and they need specialty help to find that individual. And they're great to use, but if you want to get one on your own, you got to go network. You got to meet people. You got to meet people that are in this room. People like Steve and people like Clif and people like yourself, Melissa, who know the industry and know the business and have the opportunity to learn. If you just want to assume somebody else can do your job for you, you're not going to get very good results.
Say, Melissa, if maybe I'm reading a little too much into the question, but I think there was some sort of glancing or tangent piece about changing and or expanding a role and not just being pigeonholed into a particular thing.
Right. They're an individual contributor and they want to be more of, they're really aspiring to be more of a leader.
Right. So that in changing that role, I think what people need to do is to not just say, here's what I've done, but here's what I can do. So it shows, it relates to the problem, if you will, that a prospective employer might have. So it's a matter of saying, here's what I can do for you, but also as an individual performer and trying to transition to a leadership role. Some of the other comments earlier in terms of what do people, Marie had some things on what do you look for in leadership, and Scott said similar things, which is, well, they look for people who can listen, the character, and so forth. So I think conveying those things and translating how it would translate to a leadership role is what the person needs to, if you will, sell. It's because just saying, I installed 50 EHRs isn't going to do it. You need to demonstrate and translate it to the exact target or the problem.
Yeah, and so another way to talk about that is, what's your value? Why are you valuable to an organization? Why would they hire you compared to 5 other people who have similar experiences? You need to find a way to differentiate yourself and find a way to tell people that you can solve, as Clif just said, you can solve tomorrow's problems, not just today's.
That's great. Thank you both. Great answers. I hope that answered your question, but if not, you can reach out to us after and we'll try to connect you. Maybe mentorship would be a great fit. So with that said, I'm going to go on to the next question. What was the best thing you've learned from a leader or manager that you've worked for that you've integrated into your leadership style?
Well, that's an easy one. And it was also something was said in the general session, which is let your subordinates run with their latest ideas and back them up, whether it's the perfect solution or not. Let the people run.
And I'll just, I agree with what Clif just said. I'll just add to that a little bit. And that is, got advice many years ago that I probably didn't listen to as well as I should have. And that is, smile as much as you can when you're on the phone, because believe it or not, it actually comes through. And number 2, shut up and listen.
All right, thank you very much. What are the biggest mistakes you feel people or organizations have made recently or are making currently today?
All right, I'll take that one. I think I see this, and maybe there's an editorial in here that I have, is that I think when people are doing recruiting for whatever organization, they're looking at checklists. They want to know, it's like, how many Epic EHRs have you installed? How many Meditech lab systems have you installed? And that it's sort of check the boxes, and then it gets heaved over the fence from HR to particular areas. And what they completely ignore, and this is my editorial, is that they're not looking at talent, the ability to think, to communicate, to listen, to analyze something, and they look for how many you've done, and therefore they, just because you've installed 5 EHRs doesn't mean you can help somebody solve their problem or install another one. What are you going to do? Install the 6th one just like you did the first 5? Yet the 6th one wants it done differently. So, and that's what is oftentimes missed when people are trying to employ staffers or any employees.
So I love where you're going on that, Cliff, and I'm going to add one more piece to that. And that is, I think a lot of people focus too much on those concrete skills and experiences that you have to check the box. I oftentimes say that organizations are looking for people with one green eye and one blue eye because, the way some of these organizations write these job requirements, no one in the world has those experiences, but they still believe that that's how they should put it out. I think there's too much focus on those experience focuses and not enough focus on whether or not this person is going to fit. Does this personality work within my organization? Is this person going to be combative with my staff? Is this person going to be somebody that people can trust and rely upon? Those soft skills, I think, are key critical to not necessarily saying why they should be hired, but certainly whether or not someone's going to last. And I have several friends of mine who I think are phenomenal human beings that have been hired into wrong organizations where they didn't last because that connection never existed. Their personality and the organization just weren't a good mesh. And if that happens, you're never going to last.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Bob.
Yeah,
I want to encourage, go ahead, Cliff.
Bob just triggered a thought in my mind, and it expands the question a little bit. But when we interview people for our firm, I mean, everybody is already skilled in that sense. And and Bob's heard me say this before, nobody gets hired around here unless we would consider them as a decent backyard neighbor. That means, yes, do they know where the spare key is? Yes, do they know? And so you may not be best friends or whatever, but you could work with somebody, you could talk with them over the back fence, you trust them. It's a characteristic. And I don't see that happening in lots of large, particularly the larger organizations in more recent times because of all the M&A work. We just don't see that that personalization. Or maybe they don't have the luxury for it, to be fair. I'm not trying to be critical of them, but they may not have that luxury.
That's an excellent point, Cliff. Thank you for sharing that. I want to encourage you, if you want to, this is an interactive session, so if you have any other questions, you can put it in the chat and we're happy to throw that out to our experts here. And Steve, I missed your cat already. He was, I love your cat. What a great addition tonight. So thank you for that.
Because he would make a great backyard neighbor.
He would make a, yeah.
He would.
Or some toilet paper.
It's the most amazing thing. Whenever we Zoom, she's got to be in the session.
Yeah.
It's very rare that she'll want to be held like that. But if she knows there's people on a screen, she wants to be involved.
Huh.
It's funny, my cat does the same thing. It's hilarious. So I don't have him in here now for that because I'm eating this. I don't want him to be just a distraction, but I loved yours. So we do have another question. So before I continue on, there was a question. Can you talk a little bit more about the provider payer fusion a bit more, Cliff?
Oh, sure.
A little bit more about your experience there between the two.
Well, it actually goes beyond just provider payers, okay? But with the whole notion of ACOs, et cetera. So we're now saying, okay, we have hospitals, and health systems who are taking risk-based contracts. We have insurance companies like Aetna and Optum going into the provider business. So now we have sort of maybe it's not fusion yet, but there's a crossover of, well, who are you? You were once an insurance company and once you're a hospital. Now you're a health system, you're an accountable care organization, and you have to do a little bit of both. You may still have a dominance left or right side. Then it gets even more confusing, because now we have big business and big tech jumping into the business, and it's like, who are the providers anymore? Well, is it CVS? Is it Berkshire Hathaway and Amazon? Or is it Apple? In terms of okay, so now you can get an EKG on your watch. So there's a sort of a cauldron of that involves lots of people. That involves the traditional providers, the traditional payers, and now we have big business and big tech. I mean, it's so, you know, that was what I was referring to about the fusion of all of those types of pieces.
So I agree with everything Clif said. I'll add a couple of color commentaries to that. And that is, you know, as a guy that has worked a lot in my career as a vendor or as a consultant, you know, a lot of the question is, why does somebody want to buy your services, especially if you're on the vendor side? And, you know, the way you sell to a provider is very different than the way you sell to a payer, because they have different business needs. And everybody always talks about, you know, Geisinger and Kaiser as being a unique organization because the left pocket pays the right pocket, because they're really an organization that's fully integrated. Now that organizations like CVS, who, you know, have Aetna, and oh, by the way, they're also running these, you know, these new payer organizations, and Walgreens is, I mean, provider organizations, and Walgreens is doing the same thing. Who competes with whom, who owns the business, what's the business driver that they have, those are all changing from what it used to be in the days when Clif and Steve and I started our careers, where the worlds were very clear in terms of the business drivers of who bought what and why. What problems were they trying to solve? Business drivers are changing. And you got to focus on the business driver if you want to figure out how to sell to those organizations, or what our reality is why they're going to do business with you.
Thank you, Bob. We have one more question in the chat. Any ideas for how new grads could get jobs at healthcare companies?
So I'll take that and see if, you know, Clif wants to add to it. Traditionally, one of the better areas to start in a healthcare company is, you know, in training or in implementation. Oftentimes they'll hire fairly, you know, new grads to do it. You also can get started, you know, if they do have a help desk, you know, that's always a place that people can start, you know, as a very early stage person without a lot of experience. You know, it depends on the organization. A larger organization will tend to hire younger people with less experience because they need to fill a larger number of roles. Startups generally will not hire people who are brand new because they can't afford to. They can't afford to take that risk. So if you go to an Epic, you know, an Epic organization tends to always hire people who are straight out of school. Because, or Meditech is another good example in our own backyard. Tons of people from this area went to Meditech right away, and they became implementation folks. And they went on to have great careers because they had that as their experience.
Thank you, Bob. We have a few more minutes. Clif, did you want to take that, or would you like to?
I want to add to something in that the first advice I'd give to a new grad is get a reference or have some professor sponsor you and call somebody. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. There's going to be thousands of grads out there, and the pile's this thick, you know, of the resumes. So whether it be through, there's that angle, which is a direct, you know, sponsorship by a professor. Then there was an angle that, Bob, you brought up and mentioned years ago, which is alumni associations, where I remember where there were several people that had a certain, call it a networking, and I know you went to at BU, and that was very notable and helpful, and people could help you make introductions. So it's almost like you should go on LinkedIn and look at some target areas and say, hey, this person went to Connecticut, and I'm graduating from Connecticut. Let me go ping somebody like that on LinkedIn and
Sure.
say, hey, you know, I'm a recent grad from UConn and looking for a job.
But to your point, Cliff, networking is key critical. You know, when I got my first job in healthcare, you know, getting my MBA, the only way I got it was because I networked. And, you know, Joe introduced me to Sally, who introduced me to Mary, who introduced me to Bill, who ultimately introduced me to the president of the hospital, of where I went to work my first job. And it's so you're 100% right.
Thank you both. Great answers. I would just add one more thing. I would also, when you're networking, have a list of your top organizations you're most interested in. I think that always helps because people are more apt to help you if they know kind of what you're thinking. And they might say, oh yeah, my neighbor Joe works there. And you could at least get a sense of the culture and if it's the right place for you. So that's another quick tip that's worked for me in the past. Moving on, I have experience with Pop Healthcare management platform vendor as a liaison between the clinical team and IT, and the roles I'm seeking require agile experience. Thus, I'm considering getting product owner certification. Do you have any recommendations of courses and or reputable companies that offer this?
You know, there are several that do that. I don't remember the one right now that's coming to mind, but go look at Boston Product Management Association. They sponsor a group of individuals to help them with product management world experience. If somebody wants to send me a note later, you know, I can follow up with you as well, because I do know the name of the company. It's blanking on. Cliff, do you know?
I don't have any specific things to recommend on that.
Okay.
I think I would do a top list of the agile vendors you'd be interested in, and then really go to your network and see who knows somebody at those companies that may help. So I know we're getting close to time. We're going to be moving into the other room, correct, Katie?
Yeah, we have 2 minutes.
That's great. And so it's going to pop up and it's actually automatically going to move us back there. I think you might have to click join main room. That should be popping up on your screen. Yep.
Thank you, our fearless leader, Katie. Make sure we all get back in the room. You don't want to be stuck out here without us.
You don't want to get lost.
No.
Cat might hang out with you, but no.
Yeah.
So we could take one more question. Let's see, we've got one more in the chat real quick. Okay, yep, that's the warning. So I'll just give you one more question. What are the important characteristics or qualities that are often seen successful managers and contributors? What are the ones that, you know, that are highly sought after?
You know, Melissa, in addition to what I was saying earlier about the backyard neighbor thing, if I put it into 3 words, it's what I'm going to call likability, trustworthiness, and people.
You got 57 seconds, Cliff.
I'm done.
And I liked what Mary said earlier, empathy, being empathetic and an active listener. I thought that was great. She said that, and what, you know, being someone who's a servant, like Scott said, great things that they brought up earlier that kind of we can summarize. So.
Yeah, I think it's what Cliff you were just talking about. Being a great listener, you know, having an understanding, but understanding what the organizational goals that you have, and trying to sync what you're trying to do with the organizational structure, what their mission and vision is. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be sort of swimming in your own lane and not necessarily swimming where you want to be.
Thank you so much, everyone.
We'll see everybody in the
Remember to leave and come back.
Yes,
to the
yes.
other.
You're to leave.